Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Mana. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. Episode number 88. I was reminded very recently about the rule of 20 in the podcast world that almost 80% of podcasts don't make it to an episode 20. In this iteration of the YouTube live Saturday show, we've gotten 88 of these bad boys. So I appreciate each and every one of you who spends part of your Saturday morning listening, or tunes in throughout the week as well through rewatch on YouTube or the audio only platforms that it gets uploaded to right after. Thank you so much. I'm very blessed this holiday season, and you guys are a big part of the reason why. And because of this positivity that I'm feeling, and this time of year, there's a little snow here in the Northeast today. Not enough where it was a day of work for me. But enough where, there's some snow for a white Christmas. And I want to keep the positivity going because I know I was one of the last people to market with the Juan Soto talk because I do my show on Saturdays and he signed on a Sunday evening. But in this week, since that mega deal, it hasn't actually been a week yet, which is kind of crazy. Well, it's been a little over a week. But in the following week, there's been so much slander to Juan Soto, and I just want to set the record straight for those out there that are still being negative towards the Mets giving him $765, which we talked about is really $805 million, because I don't think that anyone else is going to get close to this on the open market based on how contracts are looking right now. Juan Soto is one of the best young hitters I've ever seen. He has an impeccable eye for the strike zone. He will take his walks. When you leave it in the zone, he will do damage. He has extra base hitting power. He hits for average. He is a truly, truly elite hitter and is only 26 years old. Those kind of guys do not hit the market very often. Usually when guys hit free agency, they're 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 years old through the arbitration setup that currently is in Major League Baseball. But Juan Soto got there early. He took advantage of Shohei Ohtani being a unicorn and setting his own market last offseason and got something that, I don't know if we'll ever see again, but it's not because he didn't deserve it. It's because there's not many players that do deserve this kind of thing. I saw people talking about how generational is supposed to be for one player. How Shohei Ohtani is a generational talent. But, the term generational talent does get overused, but it doesn't mean that the players that it gets used for isn't always accurate, because a guy who's came into the major leagues and dominated quite at the way that Juan Soto has done from a young age, making clutch at-bats in a World Series run, very, very young, hitting for all these crazy numbers while leading the league in walks multiple times. He is a truly well-rounded hitter that I think will age beautifully. I know he's not a guy who's winning a bunch of batting titles. He technically did win the batting title in 2020. I don't know why Major League Baseball decided to not count the batting titles for 2020, but they were willing to count a Triple Crown pitching win for Shane Bieber, Cy Young for Shane Bieber, MVPs for Jose Abreu and Freddie Freeman. But on Baseball Reference, if you go to their Juan Soto, it shows that he led the league in batting average in 2020, but he does not get credited with a batting title. I know it was only 60 games. I understand that. But if you're going to count these season-long awards, then the batting title should also count. Otherwise, there shouldn't have been MVPs. There shouldn't have been Cy Youngs. There shouldn't have been an official Triple Crown, which I lovingly call a Mickey Mouse Triple Crown. Everyone talks about the Mickey Mouse World Series. The only thing that's really Mickey Mouse is the Triple Crown aspect of things. Shane Bieber was about as dominant as you could be in 12 starts that year, but a Triple Crown over a 162-game season versus a 60-game season are two very, very different things. And batting average is only a third of that conversation. But still, something that, a lot of guys, they win one or two batting titles in their career, and that's one of their biggest career achievements. And Juan Soto, doesn't get that on his resume, but Jose Abreu gets the MVP. But I digress. Juan Soto, man, you know, winning a batting title that young, winning a World Series so young, leading the league in walks multiple times, crazy extra base hit power. He's never going to get 3,000 hits, even with that 15-year contract, because of how much he walks. But he's just such a phenomenal talent and a guy who I tried to stress this in last week's episode. He was someone that hit the market just right in terms of age, in terms of timing, in terms of the teams that were interested in him, in terms of there being a universal DH in the league. So when you signed the Miguel Cabreras and Albert Pujols of the world to these long-term contracts, it had to be American League teams because that guy's not playing the field like they used to in the National League in their late 30s and early 40s. It's just not possible now. So that's just the craziest thing about all of this, is that everyone's acting like Juan Soto is just the worst player ever, that the Yankees are doing such a better job with that money now than they would have been if they tied it all up into Juan Soto. Juan Soto was an 8-WAR player last season, a guy who I picked to win the MVP and put up an MVP level season. But the fact that the American League MVP race, and I hope that someone does one of those video exposés on this 2024 AL MVP race someday, because it is strong. Top to bottom, there are 6 guys who put together MVP caliber seasons. Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal with the legitimate triple crown. Pitching was absolutely dominant. Aaron Judge had a 10-win season. Bobby Witt Jr. had a 10-win season. Jarren Duran had over 8-WAR, and Jose Ramirez almost went 40-40 with like a 7-WAR season. It was absolutely stacked, and it was insane to see, Juan Soto get the disrespect that he's been getting over the last week. I understand some fan bases are salty that their team didn't sign him, but you don't have to knock someone down to prop something up. You don't have to knock down the Mets contract with Soto to prop up the moves that the Yankees have made. Because I do think the Yankees' moves have been relatively good. I think Max Fried, I don't know if you're going to love him in years 7 and 8 of that deal, but you needed those years to get him, and he's a frontline guy. They were able to go out there and trade for Devin Williams, which was a huge move for that back of that bullpen. I know Luke Weaver really broke out down the stretch for them there, but they have been missing a dominant force back there since Chapman left. They had a nice run of closers there between all those years of Mariano. They had the David Robertson years. They had the Dellin Betances years, and then they had the Chapman years. Lights out guys. And getting Devin Williams back there is going to be a huge, huge help. I know Clay Holmes was good for about a year and a half in his time in New York, was a very good reliever, but not necessarily as dominant, and was able to work his way into a starting contract, which is good for him. But the Yankees' newest move in helping replace Juan Soto is trading with the Chicago Cubs, and this time for former MVP and 2017 Rookie of the Year, Cody Bellinger. There's been a lot of fun memes there about the Cody Bellinger, Aaron Judge rookie years, where they both won Rookie of the Year. They both had MVP consideration. They both were in the Home Run Derby. There's also been the funny group out there that talks about Cody Bellinger's wife, who used to date Giancarlo Stanton, the DH for the New York Yankees. But the Yankees were able to acquire Cody Bellinger from the Cubs, which was a little bit shocking to me, for Cody Poteet. It was a total salary dump move. Reliever Cody Poteet, flashed some good numbers under the hood, but it by no means is a difference-making piece for that Cubs bullpen. And Cody Bellinger gets dumped right after they trade for Kyle Tucker. I'm wearing a Cubs shirt talking about how excited I am about a lineup that consists of both of those guys, and then they go out and they trade Cody Bellinger. They want Pete Armstrong to be their everyday center fielder, Ian Happ staying in left field, Seiya Suzuki DHing, and Kyle Tucker and right. Obviously, I understand Pete Crow Armstrong on the defensive side of things has shown that he can be a difference-making center fielder. I understand that Ian Happ is a long-standing member of that organization, former middle infielder, moved to the outfield. But there's been so many other rumors of them trading guys like Seiya Suzuki and Nico Horner, which both of them are very good players. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that their ceilings are nearly what Cody Bellinger's ceiling is. And you only have Kyle Tucker for 1 year. So while I love this trade for the Yankees, adding a much needed left-handed bat to the lineup, I don't understand the move by the Cubs, especially if they don't go out there and reallocate those Cody Bellinger funds that they're saving into help for that bullpen, into a corner infielder, because they need someone to play either third or first base next year. Michael Busch can play the other. It is really, really interesting to me that they go out there right after trading for Kyle Tucker, a 1 year rental, that they go out there and they trade one of, if not their best hitter. And I know Cody Bellinger isn't the MVP of old, but he is a very good hitter still, above league average. He's a versatile defender. You can play him in center field. You can play him in the corners. You can play him at first base. And that is super attractive to any team, including the Yankees, a team that is very right-handed heavy, a team that needs Aaron Judge out of center field as soon as possible. They have already started to, teach him how to play a little first base during spring training because they know that might be the future down the line. And Bellinger is really, really amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I've seen a lot of Yankees fans out there talking about I'd rather have Cody Bellinger, Devin Williams, and Max Fried than have Juan Soto. The first part of that argument that's dumb is Juan Soto is going to be a 7 to 10 win player through his 20s. I can't guarantee anything about his 30s, but for the next 5 years, he'll be like a 7 to 10 win player a year. From Max Fried, Devin, who's signed up for that entire time, Devin Williams, who signed up for one of those years, and Cody Bellinger, who signed up for the next 2 years, I don't know if you get 35 to 50 WAR out of those three guys in those limited time frames. Now, if you had all three of them for 5 years, you'd have a really good shot. But one spot on your roster accompanying for that amount of WAR versus 3 spots on your roster, it's a whole thing. Mookie made a great comment, actually, about this Yankees plan B being a plan A for 25 other teams. I'm not hating on these moves. These are moves that have improved the Yankees roster. No doubt about it. Is Devin Williams an upgrade from Clay Holmes? Yes, he is. Is Max Fried an upgrade from Nestor Cortez? Yes, he is. Is Cody Bellinger an upgrade from Juan Soto? No, he isn't. If you're just going spot for spot. But these 3 guys help raise that Yankees team floor, and I hope they're not done. They did miss out on Christian Walker. Christian Walker signed a 3-year, $60 million contract with the Houston Astros the other day, which I thought was a steal of a deal. He's the best defensive first baseman in baseball, and he's a guy who is going to hit for 20 to 40 home run power in the middle of your lineup. A guy that doesn't have to hit second or third, but a guy you can put in the 4, 5, or 6 slot every day and be a really quality at bat. A guy who his teammates rave about him. And at 3 years, $60 million, I'm surprised that the Diamondbacks weren't willing to bring him back. I'm surprised that the Yankees weren't willing to match or overpay that. That's where I thought he was going to end up. But nonetheless, the Yankees are working their plan B. They're improving their roster, and they don't have to hate on Juan Soto to do that. That's what you should do as a big market team. You lose out on your number 1 goal, you got to pivot to number 2. That's something that my Red Sox have done a terrible job at since trading Mookie Betts. What is plan B through Z? What are those plans? And there's just nothing that can make up for losing that superstar level player, but you can try to recreate him in the aggregate, the money ball. We can't replace Giambi, but we can replace him with parts. And I don't think the Yankees are done. I have a very good feeling that they're going to end up making a move for one of these third basemen that are available in the open market, whether that be Alex Bregman or it be Nolan Arenado through trade, who he was my hero for about a day when the news came out that Nolan Arenado shot down a trade, used his no trade clause to nix a trade that would have sent him to Houston. This was before the Christian Walker signing, but this was after the Kyle Tucker trade. And it just made it seem like, one, Nolan Arenado knows how the Houston Astros are viewed by a lot of Major League Baseball teams. The vibes, even though they've won a title cleanly since 2017, the vibes have not been great. They've been a hated team since that trash can scandal. The fact that they weren't going to re-sign Alex Bregman, they traded Kyle Tucker. They still had a year of control of him. Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez are locked in. Framber Valdez might get traded. This isn't getting traded to the Astros in 2021 or 2022. This is getting traded to the Astros now. And Nolan Arenado, not only vibe-wise, didn't want to be a part of it, but wasn't sure what the Astros were doing. And I'll get into this at the end, but I think Nolan Arenado is also waiting to see what team misses out on Alex Bregman, a team that wants to fill that third base slot with an upgrade and can do that with a future Hall of Famer in Nolan Arenado. I hate, like I said, the negativity. Juan Soto's been slandered. Nolan Arenado has been run through the mud this whole baseball season, this whole offseason. I've watched his entire career. I'm a big fan. So I'm a little biased. But if you watch him objectively, you can tell he hasn't been right. I don't know if a surgery is needed. I don't know if just a change in approach is needed, but he hasn't been right for the last year or so. And the power has suffered because of it. But he still goes out there and is leagues better at defense than your average third baseman. Still goes out there, has competitive at-bats, hits for a decent average, drives in runners, does his job. And the culture shift that a Nolan Arenado brings into your locker room would be revolutionary for a lot of these teams that need that adult in the room. They need that guy to step up and be the vocal leader, to be the guy that leads by example, the guy that's been there before, the guy that has all the hardware in his trophy case. Nolan Arenado is seeming like a consolation prize to whoever doesn't get Alex Bregman. And I'm not saying on a pure production basis, Alex Bregman's a little younger, that the next couple of years, Alex Bregman won't outproduce Nolan Arenado offensively. But there's acting like there's this huge gap when the Cardinals are going to take on some of that salary. So Nolan Arenado says no to the Astros, my hero. They go out there and actually make a move to maybe try to entice Nolan Arenado to say yes in Christian Walker, a really good value move by the Astros. But Nolan Arenado, I think, is waiting to see what teams are really in on Alex Bregman and which teams miss out overall. Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we have to throw it back down the third baseline to this day in baseball history. There's a ton of baseball moments here on December 21st, which was a little shocking to me because you think this close to Christmas that there would not be a ton going on in Major League Baseball. There were a lot of signings that happened on this date. There were a lot of trades that did not happen or did happen on this date. But there is a very, very special birthday on this date in Major League Baseball history. And that, of course, is one of the best players to ever play the sport. Josh Gibson was born on this date, December 21st, 1911. Happy heavenly birthday to Josh Gibson. Some say the greatest catcher that ever lived. And with the limited knowledge that we have about his career, he has a heck of an argument. He won 2 Triple Crowns as a catcher in the Negro Leagues, 376 career hitter. That's the highest batting average of all time. And he's a guy that hit in the stories upwards of 700 home runs. But in terms of his baseball reference page, it credits him with 166. A true man amongst boys, a guy that was ahead of his era, a guy that was deemed the Babe Ruth of the Negro Leagues. Josh Gibson is a guy that did not get his flowers by the casual baseball audience for years. The more hardcore baseball fans that followed the history of the sport or went to the Negro League Museum understood what Josh Gibson meant to the game of baseball. But when the Negro League stats were incorporated earlier this year, and that was a huge move for baseball, finally doing that, people kind of realized, oh, this Josh Gibson guy was pretty good. When you look at the all-time leaders in home runs and batting average and all these different things, and Josh Gibson leaped up the list in a lot of different categories. A truly, truly amazing player that was born on this day in 1911, over a century ago. The world was graced with Josh Gibson, who went on to terrorize pitchers for the better part of a decade and a half there. And the reason this show is called The Waiting Game is because that's where we're at in the offseason. The holidays are right around the corner. There's a lot of people waiting to see what ends up happening with these free agents. I didn't even talk to the guy in the thumbnail, Corbin Burns, to some people, the number one pitcher in this offseason. Worst case, you had him listed as your number 4 pitcher behind Sasaki, who we're also waiting on for a decision, Max Fried, and Blake Snell. But Corbin Burns is still out there. We're not really sure what his market is right now, but there are teams clearly interested in bringing him in. Former Cy Young winner, a guy who, under the hood has declined the last 3 years, but is still a frontline guy that you could help a team win a title. We're still waiting on him. We're waiting on Alex Bregman to shift up the third baseman market. I think after Alex Bregman lands, Nolan Arenado's trade will happen shortly after. And in the pitching market, after Corbin Burns signs, there's a lot of other starting pitchers out there that are very interesting that I think are waiting for Burns to decide where that money goes and then go to the other teams that need starting pitching. So we're here just waiting. And, it's not the most exciting time of the year. We had the week of weeks last week with Juan Soto, with the Hall of Fame announcement, with so many other things going on, a ton of signings and trades. But just be patient. A lot of people, this time of year really get to understand and appreciate what we have and not worry about what we want or what we don't have yet. And that's how I feel this time of year for the baseball offseason. We've gotten more than we could ask for based on how last offseason went, where the big fish didn't sign till really late. We've gotten more than we could ask for at this point in the MLB offseason. There's been a ton of moves. There's been a ton of rumors. There's been a ton of great trades, signings, scandals, etc. Hall of Fame justice. There's been so much to be thankful for in baseball so far this offseason. And we just got to wait. There's a little bit of a domino effect happening here with the last couple guys, the big names that are left. And then I think there's going to be a lot of, guys filling spots the rest of the way this offseason. There's still a few big trades that are potentially on the table as well. And I will be here on the Solo Shot Sports Podcast in 2025 to bring you all of those things. Because yes, the show is also called The Waiting Game because per tradition, like I did last year, I will not be going live the Saturday after Christmas. So you will see me next in 2025. I appreciate each and every one of you that was in the chat today. Dylan, Mookie, Hugo, Orlando, everybody who stopped by this Solo Shot Saturday. I appreciate you. I hope everyone out there listening has a blessed Christmas with the family if you celebrate. Has a happy holiday and safe winter break for those of you out there that are in school or have kids of your own. And I just appreciate all of you. Just wait it out. We have so many things that have happened already to be thankful for, to go back into, to appreciate. And, there's going to be a lot more baseball in off season and amazing, amazing seasons and solo shots to follow in the good Lord's year of 2025. I will be seeing you guys on Saturday, January 6th next. I appreciate all of you. Hope there's more to talk about when we come back. Happy New Year, everybody.